I feel famous now that I'm on your guys' podcast.
You are famous now.
This is legit. Very cool.
All right, we'll get going here. All right, everyone. Welcome to the S.E.M podcast. I'm Jack Bryce with Zack Hewlett co-hosting with me, and we're joined today by Arthur Boutin, all the way from Canada, right?
That's right. Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
Excellent. And he's got his Canadian accent back. I can hear it coming through. So thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Yeah, so excited to have been consuming these podcasts and these episodes, and excited to be part of it. So thank you.
Yeah, Zach, he said he missed it coming out today. He was on the daily feed and then missed one day. So
sorry, it's one day you gotta have a rest, right?
He's like, what the heck?
Yes,
no, it's been good.
Yeah. All right. Well, you've heard the format, but we talk about, a little bit your story getting to Scotland. And then we'll kind of skip over to see what you've been up to since then. Then we'll go back and we'll talk about the mission overall. So start us out with how you ended up on a mission and got your call, all of that.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. So I actually was a convert in the church. I was baptized when I was 11 or 12, and then my family actually went inactive shortly thereafter. And it wasn't until I was about 20 when I was like starting to think about the gospel and if there's a God and all that kind of fun stuff. And so it's kind of a neat experience that through prayer and through study, I actually found I got my answer. I came to know that there was a God, and I found myself sitting in my bishop's office and answering the question, so when are you going to serve a mission? And back then I didn't know too much about serving missions and how old you need to be. I was over 20 already, and so I thought maybe I was getting too old for it, but he assured me that I still had some time, and so it took me a couple of years to kind of prepare spiritually and financially and all that kind of fun stuff. And I actually turned 22 in the MTC. And so it was kind of cool. But kind of a neat story in receiving my call. So I was working out of town, actually, when my call came. I told them, I said, nobody open it. Don't open it and keep it closed. And I think 1 week turned into 2 weeks, and it started to get a little bit long. And my mom got a letter from President Wilkinson in Spylaw Road. She's like, I think I know where you're going on your mission. And so at that point, I had her open up the call and read it out to me, and was able to learn that I was going to Scotland. So that was kind of cool.
Wow. So were you working in the oil fields?
I was.
Yeah.
I was. Yeah.
I remember that. So that's one way to pay for a mission, right? Man.
That's right. Yeah, they send you up in the bush and you're gone for, see the light of day. You're working 12-hour shifts, and it's just all day, every day for as long as they can work you, and then they send you home. So.
Wow. Cool. So what was the time frame of that? Like a year, month when you got your
when
call?
I got the call and then I got sent out. You know what? It was sometime in the summer, and I left in October of 2022 or 2002. And so I left. So Brandon Egan was in my MTC group. Had a few guys. David Martinez and the Krieger and Brother Holt or Elder Holt, Timothy Holt. There's to name a few of them that were in my MTC group, and so we all got to experience Halloween and Guy Fawkes Night in the MTC. Remember all the fireworks going off? We could hear it from the MTC, and we're like, "What is going on?"
Yeah,
and got to learn a little bit about that cool tradition.
Cool, and celebrated your birthday with fireworks.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, it was good.
Cool. All right, so we'll skip ahead now. Since you've been home, tell us about what you've been up to these last 18 years or so.
Sure. Yeah. So my wife and I just celebrated our 17-year anniversary. So we got married in the summer of 2005. And since then, we have 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls, and yeah, things are good. We're still in the same city I left from, so that's been good. But her family moved to Utah, so we do make trips down to Utah once or twice a year. Other than that, work-wise, I actually went to school to be a teacher, so I taught for a few years. But back when I got my education degree, teachers were being lots of costs and stuff were being cut from the education system. So there's lots of teachers being laid off and stuff. And I had started a couple businesses to kind of keep me out of debt while I was in school, and they started doing better than my prospects of teaching. So I just bought and sold a couple businesses throughout the last few years, and right now I'm actually working with a tech startup. So I've done a few different things, but it's been fun. Yeah.
Cool. So your wife is from Canada, but her family moved down to Utah. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, they moved down to Utah for business reasons, and so we stayed here, but we get to go down there and go visit often.
And what ages are your kids?
So I have a 14-year-old daughter, 11-year-old son, a 9-year-old daughter, and then a 5-year-old son.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, so we got the nice spread. Yeah.
Good stair steps there.
That's right.
All right. So back, you can start at the MTC, or you can start with the mission timeline when you got to Scotland. But tell us, where you served and who you served with, as far as you remember. We don't ask for 100% accuracy on this, so You're
not marking me? Okay.
No,
thank you.
we have no idea. You could tell us you served with anybody, and we just say okay.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Yeah. So MTC, I got to serve with Elder Holt, Timothy Holt. I think he's from Arizona. Him and I had a lot of fun together. Both of us, were working hard and studying hard and whatnot. But him and I, one little story that came to me when I was kind of thinking about this, doing this, is him and I were. It was like a Sunday, and we had some free time at the MTC. And we jumped over the fence to go see the temple. It was locked, and we jumped the fence. And the MTC, not the MTC president, one of the temple workers, we got in trouble anyway. But so we were getting into a little bit of trouble at the MTC. For the most part, we were actually really good and diligent, hardworking missionaries.
Trespassing to see the temple.
We just wanted to see the temple, but it was right around that time where I think it was shortly after 9/11, and they were up in security and stuff like that. So that was kind of an interesting experience. But I showed up to the MTC, and him and I got to work together, and we had kind of an interesting experience. And Elder Egan kind of mentioned it a little bit in his interview, but 3 or 4 days into memorizing the scriptures, not the scriptures, but the discussions, the actual booklets where we had to remember every paragraph, that was still our group. And then 3 or 4 days into it, Elder Ballard came and was like, hold on, let's stop. We're stopping what we're doing. And at that point, we changed from the directive was to obtain the word and to study the doctrine and to kind of build your own outlines and, preach by the Spirit. Wow. So that was kind of a unique kind of experience for us.
Yeah, Elder Egan mentioned that Elder Ballard came, but he didn't mention that was his purpose, implementing that change. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and then I know Elder Hewlett, I know you normally ask at the end, the preach my gospel thing.
Yeah.
So when I was on my way out, we had the 2 photocopy chapters that we were kind of working from. So we didn't even get to experience the full book either. So, but it's about a 2-year time frame where we were in between those 2 major systems.
Yeah, that gives a pretty good timeline of the transition that happened between the 2 systems. 2 years, basically, from going rote to making your own lessons to preach my gospel. So that's cool.
I would imagine that your printed out copy was beat up by the time you went home, with the fact that was what you had. I mean, I know that my book is pretty beat up, but can you imagine just printed pieces of paper? Is it stapled or paper clipped or something that just could get the tar beat out of it? I'm sure it was pretty intense.
Yeah, we loved it, and the chapter 8 was one of them where we were learning to be organized with our time and stuff, and so that was being rolled in. I can't remember what the other chapter was. I think it was my missionary purpose or something. But I was like, this is gold. Like this is good stuff, and so we definitely used it and taught from it, and so it was good.
Very cool. Yeah, I memorized the first line of the first discussion. I think it's, "We are children of God, and He loves us," something to that effect. But I did that before my mission. Then it was gone long before I entered MTC. But yeah,
most people believe in a supreme being.
There you go.
They may call him by different names. We know that God lives, and we want to share our feelings with you about Him. Yeah, that was what it was. So lots of fun.
There you go. See, after 20 years, you still remember it. It's still true. Just not what we teach, or at least not the way we teach it anymore.
Yeah, totally.
Very cool. All right. So Scotland, you came in under President Wilkinson.
Yep. And we went straight to Peterhead. So I know you guys have been talking a little bit about Peterhead, and it's close to my heart. I love Peterhead. I spent 6 months there. And 4.5 months of those months were with my trainer, Elder Dalebout, Billy Dalebout. And I just remember landing there, and first day you got there, I think we went to Jim Peden's house, and I couldn't understand a word he was saying. Yeah, he made us up some eggs, which was nice, and we had a little bit of a missionary. He was the mission leader, so I think we had a missionary correlation, a little bit of a meeting there. And
had Elder Dalebout already been there?
He had been there for about 3 months or so. Yeah, with another elder. So
must be a popular starting spot, because Zack started there. We interviewed another elder last week that started there, and now you're the third that was their greeny area. So.
I loved it.
This is the best place to start.
Oh man, and the words, there's no place in Scotland that say the same things like them, like fit like Maloons, like where else in Scotland do people understand that except for Thurso, right? And
that was the only place where the Walmart, the bathrooms in Walmart, had loons and coins on it instead of ladies and gentlemen, and I was like,
that's right. I remember we were at one member's house, and this little girl was talking to the TV or a doll or something, and she's like, "Do you ken nothing?" And she's like, "I can ahing." I just remember knocking on the first few doors and not having a clue what they said. I would say, "Do you believe in God?" And they say, "I dinna ken." And I thought they were saying, "I don't care." I was like, oh, well, that's kind of not really what I was expecting as a response. But the Muckelkirk and all of that great old mannies and old wifies, and it was a lot of fun.
Yes, definitely a great place to learn the language.
Yeah, right? For sure.
Yes,
so I spent 4.5 months with Dalebout, and then I had 6 weeks with Elder Piersky. I think he was a little bit older. He was from Boonville, Mississippi, and he was a cool guy. He loved Phantom of the Opera, so we always listened to that kind of music. And a funny story about him. I don't know if you'll get him on this, but so he got into some kind of romantic relationship with some girl prior to coming to Peterhead, and he got shipped all the way up to Shetland. Kind of like you transferred up there. President Wilkinson sent him as far as he possibly could. You are going up. But he was a good friend and a good elder, and I enjoyed spending some time with him. And then I was off to Cambuslang. Oh, one other thing I should make sure and mention. In Peterhead, I actually flipped a car there. So we were on our way to church, and we had 3 sets of investigators going, and we were late, and it was kind of icy, and we were just cruising, and we were going around this roundabout, and I think it was a roundabout, or it was a tight curve or something like that. Anyway, and we totaled the car. So that was a little bit of fun, but neither of us got hurt. Angels loaded us on top.
You were driving
stone fence, and Lepirsky screamed, and yeah, it was good. But
did the car land on top of the fence?
It did. Yeah, it did.
I think you showed me a picture of that.
Did you see a picture of that?
Wild. Perched up there on one of those old stone border fences. So
That's right.
wow.
Yeah. So I have a testimony that angels were looking after us that day, and we live to tell about it. So
yeah, if you do have a picture of that, you send it. We'll put it on the website and include it with the podcast and stuff. That's unique.
Will do. Yeah, I have to. You know what? I don't even know where all my pictures are. I had a digital camera, and I got to go looking for them because I haven't looked at them for years. So
All right.
yeah. So then I went to Campus Lang, and I was with Elder Morgan for about. I had an interesting time with Elder Morgan. So he was from Sacramento, I think, somewhere in California. And him and I, the first 6 weeks, we worked really, really hard. And then the second 6 weeks that we were together, he was like, I'm done. I don't want to be a missionary. I don't want to be here. It's like I'm only here because my parents. Yeah, it was like night and day. Yeah, and it actually coincided with President Wilkinson leaving and President Vriens coming in, and so he was dealing with some things, and so. But my second 6 weeks there, we sat around the flat. We didn't kind of do much. He actually snuck a TV into our flat, and if you don't remember in Scotland, but that's kind of illegal to like watch TV without a license, and so assistants ended up coming and taking it. But
wow,
we worked the first 6 weeks. We worked really, really hard. We taught tons, and it was a good 6 weeks. But the second 6 weeks, not so much. But this is, I know you often ask about kind of your experience with President Vriens. Well, this was my first experience with President Vriens because I was like this. I was still young, right? Like dreamy fire, like wanted to like baptize the whole island. And here we were sitting in the flat for, all this time. And I kind of broke down. I was like, President Vriens, help me. I was like, I'm having a hard time, right? And he just put his arms around me and he's like, you know what? You got this, and get through this. And I was worried about like what I would do after, and would I be able to still work hard. And he's like, oh yeah, I had all the confidence in the world for me and for the work that we could do. And then I got a rock star companion, Elder Chris Pattenden, who you guys, Zack, he was in the mission at the same time you were there, right?
Yeah, he was there. Towards the end of his mission was when I started. So yes,
you got a little bit of a taste of him. So
yep.
But anyway, yeah. So I got to train him, and I spent 4.5 months together and had a ton of fun. But it was very obviously contrasting to be in a place where you're not doing much, and you're watching the little ticks of the second hand on the clock just go tick to like him and I just went out there and we just ripped it apart. So it was lots of fun.
So you trained Pattenden?
Yeah.
The older Pattenden, because actually his little brother ended up serving after him. So was one of Zack's companions.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that was his brother.
Yep.
Okay, I didn't know that. So I had heard there was another Elder Pattenden that came there, but I didn't realize it was his brother. So that's cool.
Yes. Stuart is his younger brother, and he came in, I want to say it was probably 4 or 6 months after Chris had gone home. So it wasn't like there was any overlap. I think there was an age difference that allowed them to serve in the same mission but separately.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, both great guys.
One of my favorite stories of serving with Chris Pattenden, we went to this lady's house, and she was kind of an investigator, but more than anything, she just liked to feed us. And I think she was Ukrainian or something. She made this amazing food. Well, one day we went there, and she was feeding us, and she wasn't eating at the same time as us. She was feeding us. And Elder Patton and I are just sitting there, and we're trying to have like gospel conversations, but she just keeps piling this food on our plates. And you'd get halfway done the plate, and she would fill it up again. And so here we are. Like, I don't think I've ever been as full, and I'll never will be as full again. I could barely do it. And I finally, I was like, okay, I can't. But Chris just kept going, right? And I was like, what is happening? Like, what's going on? So anyway, we leave the house and we're walking down the street and he pulls out like all this food, like in this napkins and stuff that he had stuffed in his pockets.
No.
And I couldn't believe it. Like, I was like, I didn't even see him. I was sitting there the whole time beside him and I didn't even see him sneak this food. He did a good job because I was just, wolfing it down, and
Wow.
it was good. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, we worked hard and we baptized there and we met some amazing people. It coincided actually. Did either of you guys serve there?
I did not serve in
No.
campus.
No. So they had this import branch president from the Glasgow stake or Glasgow ward come in and be a branch president there while we were there, and he was awesome. He was on fire and having lots of, like, we call them munch and mingles and slurp and blurps after sacrament and after church, and just he was missionary minded and focused, and so it was just like the stars were aligned, and it really opened up for Chris and I to do some cool things there. So it was fun.
Wow. So 4.5 months you guys were together?
Yeah, so I was trained for 4.5, and then I trained for 4.5.
Man.
Yeah,
so
that was a
pretty
7.5.
unique
That was a 7.5 month area for me. And then I went
It's
to
amazing.
Dalkeith, and Dalkeith is close to Edinburgh. Beautiful area, like lots of rolling hills, and obviously it's south of Edinburgh a little bit, and lots of little towns. Our flat was beautiful. We got to taught some people there. I spent my first 3 months with Elder Trenton Olson, and trying to think of anything notable there. We taught some fantastic people. One fun thing we did there was we went to Rosslyn Chapel. You guys ever heard of Rosslyn Chapel?
Yep. The closing scene of Da Vinci Code. The
That's
church
right.
he runs into. That's Rosslyn Chapel.
So we did a little bit of a zone activity out there, and every inch of the walls is just carved in some kind of like spiritual scripture, something from the scriptures of
there's like the
symbolic meaning and stuff.
7 deadly sins are carved in story form into the walls and stuff. It is really cool.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, it was really neat. So we did that. We spent Christmas together there, and then I got Elder Garota, Harold Garota. Did you guys, you knew him?
That's when I came into the mission. You guys were my first zone leaders.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
I was down in Dumfries.
Right. He was awesome. He was from France and from Nice, and we got to work together. I remember we taught this man named Tony, and funny thing. So obviously, okay, so we taught Tony. I shouldn't jump around here. Taught Tony, and he was an amazing man, Catholic. And I remember just the way that he talked about feeling the Spirit. The first time he felt the Spirit, he said, he just felt this amazing peace and love just kind of wash over his heart. And he's just explaining this to us. And Elder Garota and I were like, wow, we've never had an investigator kind of like explain the strong feelings of the Spirit. We actually never ended up baptizing him because of some different complications with some family stuff, but had some amazing experiences teaching him. But after our first 6 weeks, we didn't know what was going to happen in our second, if we were going to stay together, but we ended up. So I ended up being there for 6 months in that area as well. But I think we had a little bit of like I think we were having a little bit of a tough time. I don't know if him and I were you have personality conflicts from time to time. Anyway, him and I went out the next morning and we went GQing in the street, and we both saw somebody that we ended up baptizing that day. We both GQ'd into somebody, and Mark, who we had baptized, was 6 weeks later, and then a lady named Val got baptized shortly after I left. And so that was kind of a cool experience that we were both like, okay, I guess there's more work for us to do here. in Dalkeith, and we just went out and went to work and had some cool experiences that way.
That's great.
I think you're the first person, Arthur, to have mentioned the term GQing in our podcast, because that's what I remember. And I've heard other people reference like street contacting and things like that, but I remember the term GQing when I came into the mission.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was thinking about street contacting just prior, but for some reason GQing came out, and yeah. So clearly a little bit of Scotland's coming back, but golden questioning, right?
Yeah,
that's it.
Trying to stop people in the street. I loved GQing. It was my, so I came into the mission hating it and like dreading it like completely, and what I hated more was knocking on doors when nobody was home. Like that was like horrible, right?
Yeah.
And so, you're trying to be productive. What do? You go where the people are. And we started teaching people in the streets, and a couple of people got baptized from that. And it was just talking to people and stopping them. And, often you would never, there's no lead up or no follow up, right? But you were able to talk to somebody about, like, why do bad things happen to good people, right? Like those types of questions came up all the time. Like, I believe in God, but I don't know. My mom died of cancer and she was a good person, so I'm kind of mad at God. And, you could just leave them just a little bit better than you found them.
Yeah.
And so that was lots of good memories doing that.
You're one of the missionaries I remember going on exchanges with and doing GQing. And I never grew to like it on the mission, but I always like, how do these guys, they're walking down the street with a smile on their face. I'm going to bring this up with Asariato as well, because his GQing approach was just to walk down the street with a smile on his face and people would talk to him. But that was never mine. That never worked for me. But yeah, you were another one of those who I'm out there on the street and I'm observing you from a distance, as one of my mission leaders. And I'm like, this guy is happy to be out here on the street talking to strangers, and it's just amazing. So that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, it was lots of fun. And, obviously that time there was also goals, right? So how many people could you teach? How many Book of Mormons could you give away? And there's no faster way than walking through a stream of people, right? When you're able to just stop. And if they say no, you got another person right behind you that you can try and stop, right? And just, so yeah, it was kind of fun. That reminds me, actually, I was traveling, you and I were talking about this just recently, Jack, but a traveling missionary for a couple times in my mission, and I was GQing in my sleep. So I was actually serving with Sprague, and he was playing it up. We had come in for like a quick lunch, and I just fall asleep like on the bed, just sitting there, and started having a conversation, teaching the gospel in my sleep, and he was like playing it back. He was like answering back, and then I'd like respond, and then like I snapped out of it. And I was like, what's going on? Anyway, that was kind of fun.
That's great.
That's a very Sprague thing to do. To see you asleep and be the other voice in your head as you're GQing in your sleep. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was good times. He was a fun elder to serve with.
All right. So where from there?
Trying to think. Okay, so Dalkeith. Then I went traveling. So President Vriens reached out to me, and we tried this concept of a traveling missionary. Every once in a while there's an extra missionary, right? There's like an odd number of missionaries. And so instead of just putting me or somebody else in a tripanionship, he thought he would try this thing called a traveling missionary. And he sent me out to serve with some elders. Sometimes there were some elders who were getting maybe homesick or, struggling a little bit, or sometimes it was just hey, these guys wanted to learn how to GQ, and you've GQ'd a few times, like go out there and work with them or help them with the door approach, whatever it was. And so I got the benefit of serving with a couple of companionships for the next 6 weeks, and then also my last 6 weeks of my mission, I got to serve with 6 companionships. Actually, I was 6 different companionships, so that was kind of a neat experience. Jack was one of those companionships. Him and
Me and Elder Schmidt. Yep.
Elder Schmidt. Yeah.
You came to us because we were both like super young in the mission.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
He'd been there probably 3 months, and I'd been there I think like 7. So we needed some senior leadership to come in and kind of train us a little bit more working. It was great.
Yeah, it was fun. I loved it. Because you just get to know so many more missionaries so fast, right? And it was only a quick week, right? It was in and out, but
Yep.
I loved it. I loved every minute of it, and got me to kind of get out and enjoy the work in different places as well, which was nice.
Yeah, I was telling you, we've talked to Bear and Sprague, who were one of those companionships that you came to as well, and they've all mentioned what an impact that had just in a short time. And I know for me, we actually had a decent teaching pool when you came in, but we weren't challenging our friends enough to keep their commitments, and you did that really well. It's like we were visiting with like a born again minister, and we'd been going there for several weeks. We'd actually been to his congregation and heard him preach, and you came in and said, "Hey, you need to find out for yourself if Joseph Smith's a prophet or not." And that was great, because we hadn't been that forward in like, "Hey, here's what we're here for. Do it." So
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember talking to that guy, and I remember I had a hard time. Not obviously, a lot of missionaries have a hard time with this. It's just not like turning it into a bash, right? And like,
yeah,
what's born again mean? You know what I mean? Just like turn it into this battle, right? And so I remember having a hard time with that. But I'm glad that it turned out to be a positive experience with you, because I was hoping that way, right? Obviously, you go out there and you try to do your best, but you never know how it goes.
That was Gordon Frame. And so from then on, he wouldn't let us teach him, but we were still his friends. And actually, when Elder Schmidt got sick, he brought us soup, like a very,
that's nice.
like definitely example of Christian brotherhood, which that's the church he belonged to, is the Christian Brotherhood. But yeah, so it was a great learning experience for me, even if I lost an investigator from it.
Sorry about that.
It was good. It needed to happen.
Right. One of my travels was actually up to the Isle of Lewis with Elder Newman and Elder Mortley, and that's a different experience. So you guys were talking about Shetland and Orkney over the last little while, and so I haven't been to either of those places, but the Isle of Lewis was single track roads, and the sheep have the right of way. Like it was pretty intense, and not very many trees because there's so much wind. But that would definitely experience everything. Was it the same in Orkney, Zack? With like everything was in Gaelic before it was in English?
So I had a unique opportunity when I was a zone leader in Aberdeen. We actually were told by the new mission President Fredrickson, to go and basically oversee the new missionaries. And so the only time that I saw the signs that were in Gaelic as well as in English was when we went to Stornoway. But I don't recall the signs being in Gaelic as well in Orkney, because from what I was told, because it was more of a Scandinavian influence on that part of Scotland, there wasn't as big of a Gaelic influence, and so it just wasn't as prominent. But I did see it when I was on Stornoway for a short period of time, so I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so Stornoway is the main city on the Isle of Lewis, and
Right.
so that's where we were, and so that was kind of fun. And Elder Mortley and Elder Newman were fantastic elders, but yeah, totally different experience being on an island versus being anywhere on the mainland.
Absolutely.
All right. So between traveling, you were in the mission home, Bill?
Yep. Spent a few months 3 months in the mission home with Elder Nelson for 6 weeks, and then Elder Egan for 6 weeks. Okay. And I also got to serve, because the office elders there at the time were Elder Dracacardos and Elder Rittman. And so, while the cool thing about that is you're in a flat with 4 elders, which is fun. But yeah, got to spend lots of time with President Vriens and Sister Vriens, and had some great companions, and got to do some cool things. So it was a good experience there too.
Great. Any memories of Sister Vriens you want to share with us?
Sister Vriens was awesome. She loved the missionaries. Everybody talks about the piggy nose, and it was goofy and it shocked us. But it was something everybody thinks about, and that's probably why she did it. But one of the stories, and I actually don't remember if it was me or if it was somebody else that told me this story. But one of the stories that really, helped me to picture Sister Vriens in my mind is. There was a group of missionaries. We're on the, those white buses where you first come into the mission, you kind of tour around Edinburgh. And this, how there's nudity everywhere in Scotland. So on the back of this bus was this lady, like completely like modeling lingerie or something. Sister Vriens looked at it and was like, no, I just screamed, and elders, hide your eyes, like close your eyes. So that's the kind of person that Sister Vriens was. She was pure as pure could be.
Yeah,
just wanted to be obedient and work hard, and she didn't like my hair. I always had to kind of push it down a little bit more when I was with her, but she was a sweet lady, and loved her and loved President Vriens as well.
That's great. Yeah, I actually went back in 2011 with I took my wife. I had my parents and my grandpa came with us, and we stopped for gas at a gas station, and my dad and grandpa were walking over to the newsstand, and they've got them covered, but I was like, don't check the news here. But yeah.
I remember that was one of the first things that Jack told me. He goes, whatever you do, if someone's reading a newspaper, don't try and catch a glimpse, because you might catch something you didn't expect to be in the newspaper. And so I'm glad that I got that advice in advance, because otherwise I would have been completely taken aback by it. It was just unreal that was something that was so common. Yeah,
so just everywhere, right?
Yep.
The sun, right? It was the sun, I think, and yeah. Don't look at the
indeed.
sun. If you see the sun, you turn your head. There's going to be problems there.
Yes, indeed.
But yeah, loved working with Sister Vriens. President Vriens loved the missionaries. What a special man he was. I remember thinking and praying with him on setting up missionary companionship, or dealing with missionaries do some silly things from time to time, right? you get to kind of see it all when you're there and you're working close with them. But he was just a wonderful man, and one of the things that whenever I think of him, the first thing I think of is that the famous Elder Boutin? Did he say that to?
Yeah.
Was he still saying that at your time, Zach? Yeah.
Oh yes,
that was the greeting.
Yes, is this the famous President Vriens?
Yes, that was definitely something. He made you feel special just by making it. Hey, is this the famous Elder Hewlett? It was one of those things that you just knew he meant it. It wasn't something he just said. He meant it.
It's true. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, lots of fun there.
Right.
So also one of the things that I wanted to mention is the lemons, and I know you guys have talked a little bit about the lemons, but how sweet that they were in the mission home. I remember bringing them a battered Mars bar once, and they reluctantly ate it and regretted every moment of it, but they were great people.
Yeah, well, that's a couple we need to get contact with and have them on here, because just hearing Elder Lemon's backstory and everything is just fascinating. It's an amazing couple there. So cool. What experiences did you have on the mission that you've seen kind of lasting impact? I know there's a lot, but maybe one in particular that you've seen since the mission, you reflect on, you look back on, is kind of anchored your journey since then?
Yeah, obviously, yeah, lots of experiences on my mission. Lots of times feeling the Spirit. Often when I'm thinking about the Spirit, I'm thinking about how to teach people to feel the Spirit. I think about my time in the MTC and my time teaching the gospel on my mission. Leadership callings and whatnot. The opportunity to think about times where I was able to learn how to be a leader on my mission. One of the things that I think I learned, and this came all the way back from my trainer when I first started in Peterhead, is he was really good at working hard, but also at having fun. And I don't know, obviously when I'm a new missionary, at times I didn't know how to maybe separate the two. I thought maybe you just had to work really, really, really hard, or you go out and you have lots of fun and can really do both. But he taught me that you can do both, and that, sharing the gospel and, serving, it can be a fun experience too. And you can joke around and you can have fun, and it can be, they work well together. And so then I carried that throughout the rest of my mission, having fun with other companions, and did what I could to keep it light, but also work hard. So I don't know, that was something I think I took from my mission, and that I'm doing what I can to teach my kids and to teach others that I serve with.
Yeah. Just occurred to me that if you told us the story of coming back to the church and everything in your 20s, and you wouldn't have had the experience of being deacons president, teachers quorum president, things like that, and the Aaronic priesthood. So getting that experience on the mission is great.
I took. Did any of you guys ever go out for a jobby supper on your mission? Did anybody take you for a jobby
I recall that.
Guilty, yes. That happens the first time in my mission when I had two sets of missionaries in an area with me. We went out to a chip shop in Dunfermline, and one of the missionaries happened to be from my group, but he's like, "Hey, get the jobby supper," and I was like, "What does that mean?" And he goes, "Just ask for it." And I kid you not, clearly the guy behind the counter had heard it too many times before, and so I being naive, asked for it. He just shook his head and chuckled and was like, I'm sure he's looking at us like, "You dumb Americans, you don't know what you're asking for." So yes, I do remember that.
Yeah, I took Elder Bear for a jobby supper. So somebody took me for a jobby supper, and it didn't work as well. It was kind of like awkward. Like there was a lot of people there, and it just didn't work as well. But I got him really good. And I said to the person, I said, "I'll have a fish supper, right?" And then Bear's like, "What'd you ask for?" I was like, "Jobby supper." I was like, "What?" It's like, "Yeah, jobby supper." So he's like, "I'll have a jobby supper." And they're like, the lady looked at him like kind of puzzled, and he's like, "A jobby supper," and he said it like louder. So anyway, by the end, he was like, "I'll have what he had." And, anyway, I told him, broke it down after, and it was kind of fun. So glad that that's still going around the mission.
That's too funny. I had forgotten about that experience until you brought up the word jobby. You don't hear that word very often, and there's a reason why.
Yeah,
it's pretty funny.
No, and it's all fun, right? And I remember you guys talking about Slane's Castle. We did the capture the flag thing there too, and lasting memory, right? Kelty cold bag race. I remember doing that, and just all those kind of things are you obviously remember your companions, you remember the members you served with, but you also remember some of the cool things you did, and that's one of the blessings that we had being in Scotland, having so many cool, peak and just all these cool things to be able to do. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, that is when anybody, when I say I lived in Scotland for 2 years, that's what they go to, right? They're like, "Oh wow," you around all the castles and everything, which was really cool. I don't think I ever took it for granted being there. You look up, you see buildings that are older than our countries. You see, castles, real castles that kings lived in, and it's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember this lady named Winifred. Did you guys ever hear of Winifred? Yeah.
You served in Hamilton, yes. Winifred's one of my favorite people.
She loved the missionaries, and she was so sweet. She took us to Stirling Castle, I think. We did a P-Day out there, and yeah, she was just so sweet. So I didn't serve in Hamilton, but I was in Cambuslang, which was the neighboring town, and so we were in the same for the same district as the Hamilton elders.
Right.
So then we got to see her often, and yeah, she was a sweet, sweet lady.
Yeah, she was the one of the people that when I first met her, I was immediately impressed by her. And then beyond that, she, I heard all the stories about how she had taken the Gospel Principles Manual and she was actually teaching out of that book at her church. Like that's the level of understanding that she knew that what we were doing was good for bringing people to Christ. Obviously, for many reasons, she didn't join the church while I was there, and who knows, that could have changed since then. But she was just a very genuine person and loved being with us and just enjoying our company. It was she's a wonderful person. I love her.
Yeah, love the missionaries, love taking us places. She even took us to the Falkirk Wheel. We got to go to a couple of places. I was there for 7.5 months, so got to enjoy the time. But yeah, super, super friendly. Catholic, right? Catholic as you could possibly get.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you got to meet her. She's wonderful.
So did you serve in Hamilton then?
Yeah, I had a 6-week period in between all of my 6-month areas, but I was in Hamilton for a 6-week stint. I was the district leader there, and I don't know. We went there, every Sunday night for dinner, and she actually had us at that time on a rotation where one of the missionaries would make a meal one week and then the other would make another meal the next week and then she would make the meal the third week, and so that was our rotation that we did. And I don't know, it was just a really enjoyable experience, and she was always so hospitable.
I love that you remember that. I forgot all about that. We didn't get the pleasure of eating over there because we were in a different area, but I remember hearing about that experience from other elders, and what a cool thing, right? Yeah. In a place where DAs were not very regular, right? Like,
no, I mean, it made it more difficult because we didn't have a car, and obviously getting from place to place. And some of the members did live in outlying areas, not in like Hamilton proper, and so it did make it challenging. But she was the most consistent dinner appointment that we had of anybody, and so a funny experience just popped into my mind too, because I remember I was like I said, the Hamilton district leader at the time, and we were there during the 2006 World Cup. And if you remember watching it, we were actually over at her house during the World Cup final, and we had been told by President Vriens, "Hey, let's stay off the streets. There's a big soccer tournament going on. Just find a place to hunker down and enjoy." And we happened to be there, and she had the game on in the background, and I was taking numbers. I was on the phone with other missionaries taking numbers when Zinedine Zidane headbutted the guy in the chest. And I remember being on the phone, like, in shock, and the missionary on the other end was like, "Elder, are you still there?" And I said, "I'm sorry, please forgive me, I got distracted." So, but yeah, that's funny. Memory just came back. I'm sitting in her front room. I can see that whole thing coming about. It's kind of a crazy experience.
Oh, that's cool.
Yes. Well, as far as your experience too, going back, Arthur, in regards to Pratt's Hill, take us back through your experience. We've had a few missionaries that have talked about that unique experience, and just go ahead and share yours.
Yeah, I got a picture of Pratt's Hill on my wall, and it's it'll be forever a sacred place for me, where I had the opportunity to dedicate 2 years of my life to the Scottish people, and and to revisit it again on the end. I had a little cousin that served in the Scottish Irish Mission, and they're still doing it. The mission home's still on Spilab Road, and they're still doing that, even though they're sending missionaries into Ireland as well. But it's such a special opportunity to experience that, and I just think it's so unique that our mission has it, and I love that our mission has it, and I just think, what a blessing it was for each of us to experience that, and to have, some church history a little bit, right? Part of that. And this is a unique, prominent place in Edinburgh as well. So, Arthur's Seat, they talk about there. And so, to have all of this symbolism and all of this, value that's put on this place and this opportunity, it was, it's kept with me all this time. And from time to time, I'll talk about it in talks at church, and I can just, whenever I reflect on dedication, I think of that time.
Yeah, I agree. It's in the moment, tying the mission to the church history that is very prominent there. It didn't mean a lot, but looking back on the opportunity in the MTC to visit the river Ribble, and to go to President Hinckley's his flat that was there just outside of Chorley, and climbing Pratt's Hill, and just being in places where the progenitors of the church walked amongst the people and did the same things that we did, probably in a different manner, but still it's unique that we had that opportunity to follow in their footsteps, and hopefully find those wheat among the tares that had been left behind.
Yeah, it was pivotal in the history of the church, right? All the converts that came from the UK kept the church alive in a lot of ways during those early days. And so to be in those places and to walk where they walked is for sure, it's very, very, very powerful. And I agree, definitely. It's very unique, and then we're blessed to have had that opportunity.
Amen to that.
Oh, I don't know if I showed, but if you can see, I'm wearing my Scottish.
I got the jersey on.
I got dressed up for tonight, so.
I can appreciate that. I think I had that same strip, but I have no idea where it is. It's since been packed away. Probably don't fit in it anymore.
All right.
Well, Arthur, is there anyone else from the mission that you can think of besides companions and people that you've mentioned that you'd like to hear from as we're continuing in this journey?
Yeah, I was thinking about this kind of prior, because I know you guys asked this question. Honestly, everybody I served with, I would love to hear from. Definitely, people that I went out on my mission with, right? So Elder Egan and obviously we heard from Elder Egan, but Elder Holt and Elder Kruger and Elder Martinez, a few of those elders, Elder France, would love to hear from them. So the sisters would be awesome as well. I remember Sister McConkey, and what was the sister's name that was in Australia?
Sister McGowan.
Sister McGowan. I remember those two were powerhouse companionship. So would love to hear from them, and would love to hear some of those. We talked about some of the members that that were huge influences in the work. Andy Thompson in Campus Lang, Rutherglen area. He would be awesome, and I don't know, maybe we can get Jim Peden on here too, right?
That would be something else, because I guarantee we'd have people that would listen to it that have lived in Scotland for a few years and wouldn't understand Jim. He is probably the world's best fast talker.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there's many more. If I just went through my journal, I'm sure I could find some more. But yeah, love, served with a lot of fantastic missionaries, and so would love. I just love what you guys are doing here. I know that I was talking to Jack. You guys must be putting a lot of time into this, and so I appreciate it. As a consumer of it, I'm looking forward to more episodes and reminiscing with more missionaries. And we thank you for the hours of service you're putting into making this happen. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for participating. And as we get more and more out there, it helps to share with your connections as well. It's like we've discovered, this web is very intertangled and widespread of just Scottish missionaries and people who are connected to the S.E.M. So as always, if anybody listening right now wants to be on, feel free to reach out to us. It's the S.E.M podcast at 51spylaw.com. And that's the website where we've got everything posted as well. So we're just going to keep this rolling and enjoying it and having a good time. It's been really great experience just catching up with everyone and hearing the unique but shared experiences that we've had. So thank you for coming on and for your time this evening.
Yeah, thank you, Arthur. It was so good to have you.
Thanks for having me. You guys have a fantastic evening, and looking forward to hearing more episodes come. Take care.
All right. Cheerio.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Cheerio.